I am live. Hey there, Mikkel. Mikkel Kalashnikov, or should I just call you Clash for short? How's my sound? Can people hear me this week? First thing you got to check, got to stick with the basics. Hopefully, folks can hear me loud and clear, Sutton. Thank you very much. How's the garden coming there, Sutton? How's all your canning and stuff going on? They're just getting ready to start. They're finally starting to get everything fired up around here for harvest. We have got a lot of agriculture in this area, so harvesting is something that is just starting up. Hey guys, creative redundancy, how you doing there? This too shall pass. Hello, Kurt. What the heck, modern refugees doing lives? Yeah, I started a couple weeks ago. Finally, putting this computer to use here that I've been working on. The garden is good. Torn rotator cuff slowing me down. Oh, that sucks. I know how that goes. I was supposed to have knee surgery this year, but I have put it off so far. Maybe this fall, but made a big pot of soup. Yeah, we actually did caprese tonight. If you don't know what for those who don't know what caprese is caprese is fresh mozzarella with tomatoes, basil, and a little olive oil. And of course, the tomato and the basil was from the garden. And Mother Refugee, she made the small potatoes we don't keep. The small potatoes usually don't keep, so we use those right away. So the small potatoes out of the garden, she will cook a little bit, then mash them flat, put some seasoning, a little Parmesan cheese on them, and then she puts them back in the oven so they get crispy. So they are. That's what we had to go with our caprese and a little bit of chicken tonight. So if you figure the tomato, the basil, the little bit of onion that we used, and the potato, we probably about 40% of our meal tonight was out of our garden, which is always awesome this time of year. Yeah, the cold snap. We are for all those out there. We're expecting a cold snap here, more toward. Hey there, Old Spice, Patriot Preacher. How you doing? Monkey Food Garden. We're supposed to get a pretty good cold snap here. Highs are supposed to be in the upper 60s, low 70s next week. Mother Clucker. Yeah, Wisconsin is nice and cool. I know I was dying of the heat. I'm built for cold, not for heat. Following the light. Hello, how are you? Christopher. Patriot Preacher recommended that I shouldn't always do my live streams on Sundays because people got stuff going on Sundays, evening church and stuff. So I'm going to try to break it up. Sundays kind of works for me, but I'm going to try to break it up and go like Saturday, Sunday, maybe alternate them back and forth so I can get everybody a chance to get in every couple of weeks. We got a heat advisory here in Puerto Rico. Mosaic Homestead. He is the real deal right there when it comes to prepping. You live through hurricanes and then, of course, the social collapse that went along with that. He's always tweaking different things in the comments, giving recommendations and stuff from his experience. He's a good guy to listen to there. He's got a lot of good information. Want to talk just a little bit about kind of harvest today. Harvest is really starting to fire up around us because we are in big time agricultural area here. Homemade pizza tonight, Old Spice. That sounds good too. Who is the dude you used to do camps with? Oh, that's Uncle Bumble. Uncle Bumble and I just had a little convo this week. We were going to go out and do a little outdoor stuff, but then that kind of got shot down with everything that was going on, so we didn't have to. So hopefully when the weather turns here, maybe Mr. My good friend Uncle Bumble there, we can get out and do a little camping or something again, or a little hiking. He is still out there and about. Beans are some of the first things that get harvested around here, and then sugar beets. We have a pretty large sugar growing area around here, sugar beets. And I remember the one time, because pretty much everybody around here at one point or time worked in the sugar industry at one point or another, myself included. And the one time there was a truck driver who was delivering stuff to the factory when I was working in a particular factory. And he called them sugar carrots, and apparently that's what they call sugar beets in Eastern Europe. So that was a little something that I sort of learned for him. But the sugar operation usually starts about the end of August, runs through the 1st of April, and they do just a ton of they do white sugar, brown sugar, molasses. A lot of stuff gets hauled out bulk for like the bulk bakeries and that kind of stuff. Go through just a ton of that. And then the beans, we have bean processing plants here in our area, and the ones that I talked to. In fact, I actually talked to the manager of the one bean plant, and he told me that they start with. Usually with black beans. Black beans are the first ones that are ripe, and then they process the smaller beans, black beans, navy beans, and small red beans. And the reason I want to mention that, yep, Pioneer Sugar, Big Chief used to be one around here too, but that all merged now. So now everything is Pioneer Sugar under Michigan Sugar. Um, the one thing I want to mention about beans, I just did a beans and rice video, and I know a lot of people will say, if something bad happens, we don't want to eat beans and rice every day. But the big thing with beans and rice is how you prepare them. If you prepare them, you can take beans and rice, and like the video that I did with the beans and the rice, the leftover beans that we had from that video, I actually made refried beans out of those a day later. So, when you cook a pot of beans, it's not always you can use those beans for a couple of different things. So, yeah, beans and rice, Sutton, is so diverse. There's a million ways to prepare them, and that is true. And that's why I think everybody should have the right stuff to prepare them. A little Cajun seasoning is good, like just like a Tony Chachere's that can help out. And have some a little bit of smoked meat in the freezer, or if you have it preserve some other way. Like I just use a little 64-cent piece of neck meat to do an entire crock pot full of beans. And a crock pot is one way that you can do beans. You can do beans in cast iron. You can do beans over an open fire. There's a lot of different ways to do that. I get hungry watching the cooking videos. I do like cooking because I feel that cooking is a large part of preparedness. Taking what you have, taking what you can find, what you've prepped, what you've put up, and then go ahead and take that and make something with it. And I really practice my cooking skills. I always have. Beans and rice are the backbone of Cajun cuisine, and that's true. Red beans and rice is amazing, and then you get into the rice, you get into stuff like jambalaya, you get into gumbo. Again, all that stuff is great to practice because, if there is some type of SHTF situation, most people probably aren't going to be making 4 and 5 course meals. They're going to be making one pot meals, and good Cajun cooking, a lot of it is one pot meals, and then have something along like biscuits or cornbread or something to go along with that, and boom, you got yourself a pretty hearty meal that's going to cover a bunch of different nutrients that you need. Hudson Valley, how you doing tonight, buddy? I stress that folks prep. Yep. Oh yeah, definitely. You don't want to, if you don't like something and if you're putting up stuff, you should really know what it tastes like. So if you Dick Proenneke, I don't know if I got his book, but I have both of the DVDs, one where he built his cabin, and then there was another one that was done on him. I want to say it was called the one where he built the cabin, I think it's called Alone in the Wilderness, and the other one's called Alaska something. But if you guys don't know who Dick Proenneke is, if anybody is from overseas or whatever, never heard of him, he's a guy that was about my age. He was in his like early to mid 50s, and he ended up getting really sick. He got scarlet fever, and when he recovered for that, he said, I'm going to live out my dream, and I'm going to go build a cabin and live out in the wilderness. And he built a cabin basically from scratch, and that cabin still exists today. I think it's in Twin Lakes State Park, or Twin Lakes National Park in Alaska, and he built the cabin from scratch. He built everything from scratch. He literally packed in his tools, and then he made the handles from the local wood that he found, so he could basically conserve space. And he had a buddy who had a float plane that would bring him stuff in a few times a year, and he brought in like potatoes and onions and stuff so he could plant them. He would eat a lot of beans. Butter beans in particular was something that Dick Proenneke, I remember either reading or seeing one of those DVDs that he would eat. And of course, he would hunt too, maybe go shoot a sheep. Doll sheep, I think, is what they have up there in the mountains. And he lived there for over 30 years until finally, when I believe he was in his late 80s, he couldn't handle the cold anymore. And then he kind of moved back, and he lived for a couple more years after that, then before he passed away. And then he left that cabin to the Park Service or whatever. And you can still go there today. Little chive, little green onions go a long way. Chives are something I should really do a video on drying chives, because I still have some of my grandmother's chives here. And we're talking about, prepping and gardening and propagating those plants and stuff. My mother would always say, when the kids moved out of the house, there was a couple things that were always passed down. And one, you were given a shovelful of the family's rhubarb plant and a shovelful of the family's chive plant to plant at your new house. And my place has that as well. I have the rhubarb from that was my mother's and my grandmother's in turn, and I also have the chives growing beside the house here, and that was all from my parents. So those things kind of get passed down. Dean, good evening. How you doing? Mother refugee, she is here keeping an eye on me, making sure I'm not getting too crazy. Mother refugee, I was just telling everybody about the caprese that you made tonight with our tomatoes and basil from our garden. That was amazing. And then your potatoes. You make the potatoes, cook them a little bit with the small red ones, and then mash them flat, put a little Parmesan on them, bake them. She thinks that they got a little too done tonight, that the cheese was a little too crisp, but you know what? They tasted delicious. I still had like way too many of them, probably 6. Um, you know, um, when it comes to, gear and things that preppers have and keep and use and carry with their stuff, when I'm doing videos on stuff, a lot of the way that I get my prepping preacher alone in remote Alaska did a video of that man's cabin recently from the Park Service tour. I should look that up, see if I could find that, and because I would like to see what that cabin looks like today. When I talk about gear and stuff, a lot of the ways I get my ideas for my videos is if I use something like, hey, I needed this, I needed like or I see somebody else having some type of problem or some type of issue, and then the solution for that. When I see those things, I always file that back in my memory banks, and then when that comes to my forefront, something will happen. I'll say, hey, you know what? I remember, somebody told me to carry this or keep this or use this particular thing for this particular situation. I pass that on to you guys in my videos. The one that's kind of sticks in my mind here, because I started working with this stuff a year and a half ago in my new job, was broken recoil rope. And I know I've said that in a couple different videos, and that was something I never thought of, but it's something that I was kind of exposed to, and I seen it happen multiple times, time after time after time. So that came to me, hey, you know what, I should pass this on to my the folks that watch my channel, my subscribers, so they can go through and perhaps add that stuff into their preps. I know it's a lot of things that I have and I use. A lot of the things I carry in my pack, a lot of things in my toolkit in my truck, a lot of things that we have here fall into those categories. Hey, Rip Curl, where are you there? I seen somebody saying Rip Curl's another good guy. He's been around for a long time. He's a um, moderator on a couple of really big channels. Like the one I'm thinking of right now is Marfugal. Marfugal is a guy that gives news and stuff, lives out on the West Coast, and he pops in from time to time, and everybody kind of calls him Marf. His name is Adam, and I remember Marf was probably, I remember when Marf's channel started, and I remember watching some of his stuff, and I still do from time to time. I'll listen to some of what he's got going on. But anyway, canning and stuff is in full blown. I mean, I work today. People were looking at canning stuff. We got in Mrs. Wages stuff at work today that people special ordered so they can make pickles. And if you're new to canning and you want to try out canning without getting really crazy about it, I highly recommend using Mrs. Wages products, Mrs. Wages stuff. And I'm not getting anything from Mrs. Wages to say this or anything, but stuff like Mrs. Wages spaghetti sauce. Um, Washborn Billy is one of my subscribers, and I recommended that to him, and I think he was actually trying some of the spaghetti sauce. And even if you don't have your own tomatoes, you can go to the store. You can get the big, I think they're 28-ounce cans of tomatoes, like the Roma tomatoes, or you can get them crushed tomatoes, and you can take the Mrs. Wages seasoning mix. You can mix those two things together. I believe you add a little bit of sugar into it. It's like a half a cup or something for a package of Mrs. Wages spaghetti sauce mix, and then you just go ahead and you hot water bath that. And a hot water bath canning is very simple. You just follow the time like it says, and you can get a big old stock pot, and you get a little wire rack to go in the bottom of that to keep the mason jars off of the bottom, and you go ahead and just follow directions on those Mrs. Wages products, and they're gonna turn out for you. I've never had anything Mrs. Wages that I've ever tried myself. I've never had any of that fail. Corsair Trainers, how you doing tonight, Steve? Corsair Trainers is more on the personal defense side of preparedness. In fact, he actually runs some training classes. He's out there in Southern California. And I can honestly say, when you get into YouTube channels and stuff, there's always a question on credibility, and there's questions on people's credentials to be teaching some of the stuff. That do they really know what they're talking about when they're teaching that kind of stuff? But Corsair Trainers is one that I have 100% confidence in. So if you're into that stuff, or you think you want to look into some of that, check out Steve's channel. Steve also has a Patreon channel that he puts out information on from time to time. So that's sort of my plug there for Steve. He's a good guy. I know I've asked him questions and stuff different times, and he has always answered me and pointed me in the right direction, because I am a layman at this. I just kind of share my own experiences, and I go ahead and I do videos on my recollections, how we lived growing up, on different things that we did as far as woodcraft and preserving food and that kind of stuff. And then I share my own experiences, of different things, anywhere from being in the city, and my own camping and outdoor type experiences, and my experiences with work, and do it yourself, I guess, that kind of stuff. So Catherine says hi to Mother Refugee. Yes, Mother Refugee. I twisted her arm to become a mod for me, so that's how she is participating in my channel. Other than giving me good ideas and good support over the years, passing the knowledge of the old ways, and that is something. Kind of one of the main reasons why I started my channel. There is just so many things that are lost. If there's any old folks that if there's any, if you have a relative that's maybe in an assisted living facility or something, take a couple of hours, get in there, speak with those folks, maybe go in there when they're having like their supper at night, a community meal, and talk to those folks. I'll guarantee you're going to learn more solid information on preparedness probably from those old folks than you are from watching 1,000 YouTube videos. Now, there are good YouTube videos out there, but I'm here to tell you that real world experience. How did we live? What did we have? What were the things that we kept in our pantry? How did we live through the Depression, when rationing was during World War II? How did you guys get through that? If they lived in the city, did you participate in the rationing, or did you grow a victory guard? All those things. Those old folks will just be ecstatic to go ahead and talk to somebody younger who's actually interested in that stuff. And I guarantee you, take notes. You are going to learn stuff, and then you can use that, what they said, as a springboard to hop on the internet, do some modern research, and kind of merge all that stuff together to get the information that you can put into your own preparedness. Any Sasquatch in Connecticut? Well, I have heard stories about northern Michigan. I can honestly say I have not ever seen a Sasquatch, but You never know. There could definitely be out there. There's definitely enough evidence. Eli in the Wolverine state, we save jars to use at camp. Got to have a lid. I will tell you something else. A coffee can, the large coffee cans, they used to be metal, now they're plastic. That's perfect to put a roll of toilet paper in at camp to keep the water out of it. Like if you're using an outhouse or you make a makeshift privy, that's a little bit of advice there. Old timer van's not working. Hit the starter with a screwdriver. Done, zero. Yeah, that's true there, Kurt. There's been lots of times when I had to crawl underneath a vehicle and smack either a gas tank for a fuel pump or tap on a starter to get that to work to get us out of that way. So happy to chat with you, Mother Refugee. Channel has been such a blessing to me and my family. I appreciate that more than anything else. I appreciate it, and I hear that all the time. I will read even on older videos. I did a video that was really kind of out of the blue. I did a video on how to a cheap fix on a buddy heater. Buddy heaters work, but they have some quirks. They have some things that will happen to them. And I did just a very quick video on how to clean out the pilot light on those buddy heaters with a Q-tip. And I just every year I have people comment on that. Oh man, you saved me from freezing my tail off all night because we're camping or we're staying in a car for some reason or whatever. So that's kind of the way we go about and we do that. But the knowledge that people have, it doesn't do me any good to take that knowledge to my grave. If I can share that and somebody else can get some benefit out of that. And I think a lot of the old timers thought that too. That's why they took so much time to, I don't want to say train, but teach people, that were, kids of the late 60s and early 70s, teach them all that stuff because there were still people around that time yet that actually seen what really hard times look like. And, when you talk to people, and I get that a lot from my channel in the comments and stuff, I get a lot of folks that will tell me kind of their stories of different things, and you start talking to people in the comments, and then of course you start talking to people in real life. You can actually kind of get the vibe off of people, when they have really went through a real SHTF situation. And whenever I talk to people and I get that, hey, that they went through a bad situation and they're talking about whatever that situation was or something else, I always add a little bit more credibility to those people's stories that they've been through that stuff. And I like to ask questions. Well, hey, how did you handle that particular situation, or what happened in the aftermath of that, or whatever. And again, that gives me that firsthand account of that knowledge and that experience, of course, that I can add into my preparedness. When I go out on a day-to-day basis, I kind of think to myself, what am I going to learn about preparedness today? How am I going to pick up some experience from the people out there that I run into just by chance or whatever, or by providence, however you want to look at it. And that is, some of the things. Great video today, but I prefer apple season is almost a pause. Oh, our apple tree, the backyard is full. The top we had trimmed, and that's putting more energy back down into it. So I am definitely probably going to be making some apple cider this year. It's been 2 years since I canned any apple cider. I like having some apple cider around because I like making cider bread, and apple cider can makes a pretty good pork roast actually if you put a little bit of that in. And of course, that stuff keeps, and then of course you could ferment apple cider, make yourself a little hard cider, so you have some of that when family and friends come over. And I'll tell you what, a little apple cider, a little fresh apple cider, and a little bit of brown sugar in there, and get that fermented good, and then just let that set so all the settlings come out of it, and then skim the clear off the top, bottle that up. I'll tell you what, you're going to have some really good hard cider to crack out when friends are around. I had a young guy working for me, and a wood chipper wouldn't start, so I jumped and started a screwdriver. Oh yeah, yeah. And I share a lot of stuff with folks on where I work now too. A lot of problems can be solved by something like cleaning up a spark plug. It's just simple things. As a general rule, most mechanics are going to try all the simple things first before they start getting into the big things. And I don't want to say every time, but I'm going to say about half the time, from my own personal experience, about half the time when something's not working, it's something simple and it's a quick fix. But yeah, a lot of the times I say, hey, I carry this in my pack or I have this in my car. It's because I've used that stuff over the years. And that was another thing. A battery. Batteries are big time problems when it starts getting cold weather outside. And I've worked in that, retail and stuff long enough. You could always tell the first day that was like 5 or 10 below 0, people would just be flooding into the store to get batteries because everybody's batteries died. So one thing, as it's starting to get colder here, we were talking about we got a cold snap coming here. Well, it's not really that cold yet, but I'll tell you what, now's the time when you want to check your battery out. A lot of places like auto parts stores and stuff will check your battery to see if you got a week selling it. Usually it's free. Go get that checked. You might save yourself from having a bad day going to work on a 10 below morning. And that's something, just little tips and stuff like that, I think are more valuable in prepping videos than people trying to sell stuff, I guess. But there's a place for that too. But I think that sharing people's experiences really has more to do helping out the average person. What do you got here? Can't wait for apple cider and donut season. Yeah, ain't that true, Mother Refugee? I should make some homemade donuts this year. My mother taught me how to make homemade donuts in the cast iron, and the best homemade donuts are always made with actually lard. You cut the donuts out, and you drop them in the lard, and then you flip them over, and as soon as they come out of that hot lard, you put cinnamon and sugar on them, and they are literally the best. I think that was like the first year of my channel that I did a video on cider and donuts, and I was making them up and showing everybody how to do that. Hey, MR, have you any generator advice? I got some solar generators. They're okay, but I'd rather get something with more meat to it. Propane, diesel. I have a generator. I bought it at Home Depot about 2011. I paid about $600 for it. It is a 55. It runs at 5,500 and it's got a peak of 6,225. The big thing with generators, Kurt, is you need to know how much power you need for when the electric motors kick on. You're going to have a spike. When a freezer kicks on, you're going to have a spike in that electricity. That spike is what you have to figure into your generator. Now, my generator here, like I said, it's got 5,500 runtime. When everything that I got hooked up is running, we pull about 3,000 to 3,500 watts. And when it kicks in, it goes up about 1,000 watts. So we got at least 2,000 watts in reserve, which is what you want to have in case two things kick on at a time. But I don't have a large enough transfer switch, and a transfer switch is what you hook up to your power box. And what that does is that isolates your home from the grid, so you don't backfeed electricity into the lines and electrocute a lineman down the road working on anything. So when me or the family, whatever, we go out, we start up the generator, and our generator runs on propane. So, and another reason why I like propane, you can store propane forever, but if you ever had to move a portable generator that has a 6 or an 8 gallon gas tank on top, you are adding literally 60 pounds or so to that generator to move around. So then if you have, older people in your family, younger people, or like my wife, who's got a bad back, I don't want her going out and moving that big old generator around. But with a propane tank hooked up to it, they're two separate things, and the portable generator isn't that heavy. And what you do is when you hook that transfer switch up, what we did is say, okay, what do we want to run? Well, we wanted the refrigerator to run. We wanted our furnace to run. We wanted to have lights down in the basement because, of course, if there's a storm or something outside, we're going to come down in the basement. So we picked out what circuits we wanted. We bought a transfer switch. I installed the transfer switch for the things that we wanted to run in a storm. But here now, years into it, I could have bought a bigger transfer switch. We could be running a few more things on our generator than what we do. And the generator I have set up so I can run the generator out in The garage. Oh, thank you, Kurt. I appreciate that very much, sir. Very much, sir. But I run the generator out in the garage. Our garage isn't attached to the house in any way, so I can run that generator out there. But then I can lock the garage up, so the generator isn't just outside running where somebody could steal it, and that's a big thing too. So the generator plugs into the house. We come in after it's running, it's kicked off, it's running. We got the propane tank. I usually leave the propane tank hooked up to the generator, so that makes it start a lot easier. Start up the generator, get that going, plug it into the house, flick on the transfer switch, and then everything runs in our house. And I have it hooked up to 100-pound cylinders because 100-pound cylinders have a lot more fuel in them. They'll run a lot longer, but that generator can run all the way down on a 20-pound grill tank. If it has to. And we've actually done that when other friends and family members were out of electricity. We took our generator over there, fired it up, and hooked it up to 20-pound grill tank so they could, keep their freezer going, keep their food good and whatever. But that's basically the quick skinny on our generator setup here. Did it all myself. At the time, like I said, it was $600 for the generator. I think it was $200 for the transfer switch. I got a heavy neoprene cord, so if the cord is outside, it's all outdoor rated. I spent about $100 on the cord, and then I spent about $150 on a propane conversion kit. It runs on propane, but I can disconnect that very quickly and run it right back on regular unleaded gas as well. So I have a couple different options depending on what is available. Of course, Air Trainers, we have a Generac generator hookup, works great. And that's true. A lot of folks around here, people who have a little bit more money and stuff, they're hooking up into the Generacs that usually run on, they either run on propane for the folks way out in the country, or they run on natural gas. The big thing with the Generacs is if you have a Generac hooked up to your house, sometimes you have to change the natural gas service coming into your house because they draw more. And the Generacs, the whole house generators, are generally between $20,000 and $30,000, depending, or between $10,000 and $20,000 from the people that I talk to that have had them installed in the last 5 years or whatever. But yeah, it's a pretty significant investment, $10,000 to $20,000. But I'll tell you what, if you have medical devices, like you have somebody that's got COPD in your family that's on oxygen, that has to run a concentrator or something, you need to look at those things, something like that. Oh, Catherine, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I hope everybody is getting, some type of value out of my videos here in my channels. But if you have some type of device that people rely on to live, there's no better reason to get a generator. And I think that folks that do have problems like that should have some type of generator, even if it's a basic portable generator, at least something that can run that stuff. Mike Tango Whiskey, what is your approach to fitness as it's related to preparedness? Get out and walk with your pack as often as you can. And, get out and acclimatize yourself to the weather that you live in. You want to get out and walk. I've done different videos already where I would have my wife take me out somewhere 12, 13 miles from the house here and throw me out of the car. Sometimes I take Uncle Bumble with me, throw us out of the car with our packs, and we walk home one way or another. Maybe on the road, maybe on the railroad track, maybe through trails, whatever, and we walk back home. And I have done that at another job that I worked at. I actually dropped, I had her drop me off, where I work, and I walked back to the house. It took me all day because it's quite a few miles, but then I stopped, got down in the ditch, had my stack. I kind of left, kind of had a little OPSEC-y. I tried to stay out of sight as much as I could while I was going, covered a bunch of things like, you don't want to go hide in somebody's woods that's got no trespassing signs all the way around it, especially if an SHTF situation happens. If something like that takes place, you probably don't want to get caught trespassing because people are going to be on edge anyway, that kind of stuff. So that is kind of, I think the big thing is you should be able to walk, move, and do a certain amount of manual labor, because for us here, if something would happen, I'm going to have to go out and I'm going to have to plant plant my garden, I'm going to have to go out and split firewood to keep the wood stove up and going. There's going to be a certain amount of stress with that, which means you're going to have a certain amount of, farmer fitness, if you want to put it that way. So, that's kind of how I look at that. I don't necessarily have a treadmill down in the basement, but I walk every day. I walk anywhere on my job, anywhere between probably 4 and 6 miles a day. And then I add that on to the regular walks that I do. And my pack that I keep in my vehicle most of the time is between 13 and probably 15 pounds, depending on the season, maybe as high as 20 pounds in the dead of winter. And where I like to go out and I like to, walk with that stuff. And we have some property and stuff. And sometimes I'll walk from the house out to the property and back, because that's what you would be doing in kind of an SHTF situation. Gnostic Nomad, if you can't do it for one night, you're cooked when SHTF happens. If someone wants to train next time it's raining, oh, we've went out, if it, like the old saying goes, if it's not raining, it's not training. And that's very true. We've done a lot of different things. We went out shooting in the rain. We've shot on like days that were ridiculously hot outside. We've stayed out. I've done kind of a couple videos on that. Of course, I don't like to talk too much about the pews on live streams, because YouTube I don't know, PP slaps that. But we like to shoot at least a couple times a year out when it's dark outside. That's something too. If you've never used those lights on your pews when you're shooting on a really humid night, that smoke from the report of your firearm will actually blind your vision, because that light, that million lume light that you have on there will actually reflect back at you, and you can't, all of a sudden you can't see anything, because your light, your eyes have adjusted down to the darkness outside. So you could get into that. MR, where? Oh yeah, petameter. I actually have those on. I have the modern way now. I have it on my phone. My phone actually keeps track of how far I walk, and it shows the spikes. On my days off, of course, if I got stuff to do here, I'm just walking around the house and whatnot. So I always try to keep track of my walking on that. And of course, I had that Prepper for the Ages. Prepper for the Ages, another one of my longtime subscribers. Good to see you there, Prepper for the Ages. Prepper for the Ages went through a really hard time too, with taking care of a family member, and I know how that goes, because I've had to do that multiple times. And I'm going to say this too, not to harp on the subject, but we prepare for all eventualities, which means we have even figured estate planning into our preparedness. And I have a manila envelope here that has the information in if something happens to me unexpectedly, how my family should take care of things. And I have everything set up as best I can right now, if something does happen to me, you know to take care of that stuff, because I don't know how many times I have seen somebody gets sick and passes away unexpectedly, and they don't have any paperwork filled out. And people have a real aversion to death, and they don't want to talk about that stuff. You might want to bring it up. In fact, I had somebody tell me once, when I brought that subject up, hey, we should have some plans in place, for this or that. And I was told, what are you talking about that for? I have a lot of living left to do. And that wasn't really the case. And you know you are going to save your family a massive amount of problems if you have that paperwork filled out in advance, and you have some directives in place, you have some people appointed. I'm going to go one step further, some competent people appointed to take care of your affairs if you become incapacitated. What if you can't speak for yourself? Who do you want speaking for you? So you need to, that's another part of preparedness that's, outside of the pantry and the get home bag, so to speak. But that's something else that I very much wanted to mention there. Subdog, how you doing there? Subdog is one of my good friends from Canada. Subdog's been on my channel forever. Mr. Brad, how you doing? Hike on days when it was 100 degrees and camp through a thunderstorm at night. Yeah, that was a crazy night. We were camping at a state park, and a large thunderstorm blew off of Lake Huron here where we're at, and we had one heck of a night for about 3 hours. You're in a hammock, and you got a couple of tarps or a poncho covering on it. I didn't get wet, but I'll tell you what, that hammock was swinging 100 miles an hour, and all the lightning and everything crashing. And we were lucky; we were in a good spot where there wasn't, there weren't no dead trees or nothing like that around. But that's all stuff you kind of have to figure into it. And it was ridiculously hot too, so it was crazy hot during the day, and then at night we sat through that thunderstorm. But yeah, that was a crazy night. Sunset just last month. Within 10 days my car permanently died, my cat died, find out my 80-year-old brother. I am so sorry to hear that, Sunset. I really am. I have been in those situations. I mean, I was there the night my father-in-law, mother refugee's father, had been sick for several weeks, and we took him to the ER. Family member took him to the ER. We got called at work, and we went there, and he was basically diagnosed with lung cancer that night. And you're just kind of, you're gut punched. How do you? There's what do you say? What do you say to something like that? And it was it was a bad situation, but yeah, literally one phone call, one trip to the doctor could literally turn your entire world upside down. Time to close up the barn. Sunset, you have a good evening. I appreciate you stopping by. I always enjoy having you here. And Sutton's Days has got a great channel. She's all into pantry preparedness. So if you have a chance, swing by, see her channel. She's got good information to share. The same thing with some of the other folks here in my chat here. Hudson Valley Prepping and Survival is another one. It's been on YouTube. Should have a lot bigger channel, but it's always gets beat down by the man, so to speak, with YouTube. Melissa, how you doing? How is the desert? Probably too damn hot if I know you. What we got here? What else is on here? Checking through here, everybody. If it's raining, I'm complaining. Mosaic, isn't that the truth? Creative redundancy is another. Creative redundancy is always helpful. If you got any problems or something, you're watching one of his videos and you put in his comments, he will be more than glad to help you out. Going through stuff, and that's a lot of what these YouTube channels, sharing information. I've had a lot of people say that to me too. We get a lot of information from your commenters, so I start the conversation, and sometimes it just takes off. Sometimes when you do a video, it's like a small child, and it kind of takes off on its own, and it grows. Sometimes it grows in ways you don't want it to grow, but sometimes it grows and it moves on, and it kind of takes on a life of its own, and a lot of times that's a good thing. Melissa, damn hot is an understatement. I believe it. Tammy, how you doing? Tammy's another heads up, severe weather in Detroit. We just had storms blow through here this afternoon, 2 or 3 pretty intense rains and thunders we had. Tammy's down there in Detroit, kind of downriver. She is another one of my longtime subscribers out there that I always enjoy talking to. But harvest season is always I think people, when they get into preparedness to a certain extent, they get kind of, well, we got to buy all this stuff. We got to buy, we got to buy all the food and put it up and whatever. And there's so much food that you could put up just yourself. You could save money. You're going to know what the ingredients and stuff are in, and I think that's part of the reason why my mother and my grandmother from day one pretty much taught me canning and putting up food and gardening and all that other stuff. And there's a lot of times when something didn't grow so good for mom, so she would go talk to other people and she would get their surplus. Or one of the stories that I got told from my in-laws, they lived in Bay City, Michigan. Bay City, Michigan is on the Saginaw River, and when the father would go out and work. The mother would stay home, of course, and taking care of the kids. And then she would actually go around and she would look for people who had fruit trees and look for people who had gardens. And if there was anything left over, she would say, hey, when you're done canning your tomatoes or something, do you have any left over that we could have? 90% of the time, people would say, oh, yeah, we're not going to use the rest of the stuff. So I'll go out there and help yourself. And they would do that. Or they would have a pear tree and they would say, hey, are you going to use all the pears on there? They say, no, we're not. Come around with a pail or a wagon or whatever and get what you want. And that's how, they would put up some of their food for the year, just by kind of going out and pressing the flesh and talking to people and seeing what's available. And I've noticed that too. A lot of people, if you just ask, a lot of times they will say, hey, go ahead and take that stuff. I don't have a walnut tree, but I have no problems getting black walnuts, because there are people that got black walnut trees and they hate raking them up, or if they do rake them up, they just want them gone. And then you can go ahead and go through and clean them up and put them up, and black walnuts will last a long, long time if they're properly put up. And it basically the only thing it requires is one of those paint paddles that goes on a drill, a bunch of water, and a couple of 5-gallon pails is basically all you need to take the ends off, or take the husks off black walnuts. And then the liquid that's actually left is sort of like a homemade iodine. But you didn't hear that from me, but that's something that's very true too. Kurt, got to run, everyone. I appreciate the super chat. I appreciate you being here. Hopefully, my quick ramblings there on the generator helped you out, and you can use that knowledge to your benefit. Would. I had no one in my family that prepared. I taught myself. And that's true. A lot of people, especially now, they grew up in a completely different environment than I did, and they have to learn kind of on their own. And there's a different learning curve, for that. So let's see here. Yeah, sometimes you have to teach yourself stuff. I a lot of the woodscraft stuff I sort of taught myself to a certain extent, but then I started hanging around with, as I got older, I started hanging around the older folks that were sort of into that, and then that's, likes attract likes. So, if you're interested in certain things, you start hanging around with people who have those same interests that you do, and of course you learn from that stuff. I clean and I organize like I'm moving. Yeah, I need some time to clean stuff out. Organization really can help with things like your pantry and your first aid kits, because when somebody's got a cut and they're bleeding and something's going on, you don't want to be fumbling around in first aid kits looking for things. It's one of the reasons why I like dividing my first aid kits up in sort of, we got one for illness, one for injuries. I got a burn kit that actually can help people out, because I might not be the guy here that's using that stuff, somebody else is. So when you're setting up kits and packs and bags and stuff, it's always good to pass on that information to other people, and keep it as simple as possible so that they can learn from that stuff. What we got here? Hello from Central Michigan, sweet Irene. How are you doing, Central Michigan? Lots of good farms over there. You drive it, you don't think of Michigan as this huge farm state, not like, you think of like Kansas and Nebraska and South Dakota and stuff like that, like southern Minnesota. But I'll tell you what, we have a lot of agriculture here in Michigan, and that is both good and bad. The only first kit is a carpenter boo-boo kit, a roll of electrical, takes a paper towel. Oh yeah. Yeah, lots of times I've seen that. Well, I used to do roofs when I was a lot younger, and yeah, I don't know how many times a piece of paper towel and a electrical tape were the Band-Aids that we used. Yep, Gratiot County. I know it well. So how is everybody's I keep an eye, I say this, I watch the news, but I don't watch the news. And I think most preparedness is, small localized things, things that either happen to you personally or things that happen to your community. Those are kind of the stuff that I think that people should prepare for most. But, I still keep an eye on, big prepper things as well. And, the one I wanted to mention just real quick here now that I'm just thinking about it is, like pole shift, how many there's probably 1,000 videos, if not more, out there, preppers talking about, pole shift and whatever. And, I have noticed things that relate to that just here, where I live. Michigan is the second in the nation for agricultural diversity. Oh yeah, I believe that. I believe that in a heartbeat. And and the reason I say that with like a pole shift, and changes in weather patterns and whatever, um, magnetic declination. And now magnetic declination, there's a difference between true north and where magnetic north is. And magnetic north moves. It doesn't always stay in the same spot. And magnetic north has moved just a lot since I was a kid compared to what it is now. And one of the things that I noticed, this was like 2 years ago, we had a northern lights, and I wanted to go out and see the northern lights. MR, do you ever go to estate sales? I do from time to time. Of course, there's less of them now than there used to be. When I was younger, there were auctions, and old farm auctions were a great place to find old gear. And some stuff that I have here, I actually did buy at auctions. But one thing that you can tell when the northern lights are out, the northern lights will typically be closer to magnetic north because that's the magnetic um, according to the particles from the sun. I don't know all the science terms, but the particles from the sun riding the magnetic waves into magnetic north. And then you see where the North Star is. And, like the northern lights are over here and the North Star is like here. And you're like, whoa, that's a big difference between where magnetic north is and where actual true north is. So that's some of the things. Magnetic north is constantly moving, and the difference in the grid and north. Yeah. And that is what's called your declination. So that's something that you always have to figure in kind of when you're navigating. Um, Gnostic Nomad, I could tell everyone what's going on with the poll, but none of you would believe me. You'd think I'm crazy. I wouldn't, because you know what? Some of the things that I've seen here, especially in the last like 20 years, like now we have these crazy winds. We would just get like terrible winds for days and days on end. And when I was a kid, you would have like a strong northwest wind after a thunderstorm or something in the summertime, or you'd have a strong northeast wind and a snowstorm would blow through, and then the wind would switch around to the northwest for 3 or 4 days, let the, blow the snow around or whatever. But now, I mean, even like in the middle of summer, you'll have just insane winds for days on, like they have the Santa Ana winds out in California. Let just have these crazy winds for days on end. And it's like, I don't remember anything like this when I was a kid. I had to go to ER because my preps didn't include an x-ray machine. Yeah, isn't that the truth? And I'll tell you what, a medical emergency is probably the most common SHTF that folks which will fall into. And that's where I did that video there a little bit back about having a hospital, a bug out bag or a hospital bag in case, if I got something going on or my wife has something going on with her health problems, to have a bag that we can grab. Because you know what, when you're heading to the ER, sometimes, that might be a week in the hospital afterward. Grab that. So you have that. It makes it a lot easier to have that stuff already pre-staged and grab that and take it along, because if you're taking somebody to the hospital, a loved one, your mind's more concentrated on them than it is getting underwear and stuff around. But if you already have that stuff staged, you can grab it and then you can go. Meg, thinking what happened in DC is coming to more cities as unemployment ticks up. And you know what, that's another thing. Just like the pole shift, I believe that we will have some type of martial law at some point, and they'll probably call it something other than martial law, whatever. But it's going more and more to an authoritarian society. And how are we gonna, how are the average person gonna live? How are you gonna go to work? How are you going to, get what you need at the store or whatever when you got everybody gets scanned? I could go on forever about that. I'm trying to keep it a little bit, a little bit level, but I could go off on a tangent for that for hours because, they want to do that. That stuff is coming. Shifting back to Pangea, where the continents will pull itself eventually. Goldilocks ocean. Oh yeah, if you folks have never heard of like the Younger Dryas and some of those different cataclysms that have happened in the past, there's no saying that that stuff can happen now too, even in our modern world. They think they got it all figured out, but I'm here to tell you that they don't. EMP and social unrest. EMP is one thing that's talked a lot about, and you kind of don't know where it all stands because you hear so many experts, so-called experts, talking about it. But social unrest, I can see that in an absolute heartbeat. La Ninas blow wind and snow. Oh yeah, typically La Nina years here where we are in Michigan are nasty winters, and on the flip side, El Nino years are actually really mild winters. Some winters where you don't even get much snow. Remember, everyone. Oh yeah, grease your equipment, take care of a bunch of stuff today. Oh yeah, you always want to go through your stuff and keep it up and going. Future lockdown. Oh, I've said this before, Sunset. If there's some type of SHTF event, your ability to move around, whether they call it a lockdown or whatever, a curfew, that's going to be affected. But your movement is going to be definitely affected by some type of SHTF. The magnetic shields weaken, so does the climate. That's true, Mosaic. That is very true. You're on camera everywhere you go, Monkey Food Garden. That is very true. Like when you walk into those big box stores and they got the little bubble right at the door when you're walking in. How many times have you seen the picture on TV? So and so did something at the store. Here's the little store picture. Don't tell me that they don't compile all that information, because they do. That stuff is all recorded and kept. How long it's kept, who knows? Maybe that's why they're building all those data centers. But again, I could go on for hours about that. EMP preparation covers just about anything else. It's true, prepping preacher. And what is EMP preparedness? It's living without electricity. It's living without all our modern conveniences. And that goes back to, the stuff Grandma and Grandpa did 80 and 90 years ago, So that's a lot of the reasons why I tell people how to ferment food and how to dehydrate stuff, and, how to stockpile the right things that might be important if something goes down where there's no pharmacy for whatever, for 6 months or whatever. That is stuff that you want to always keep in mind. MR talking about nuts and bolts, pecans down south here first. Oh yeah, pecans. Our aunt lived in Arkansas, and she passed away. She was actually over 100 years old when she passed away, but she would always send my mother dishes full of pecans that she would just basically sweep up because there were so many pecans down there. She would send Mom big boxes of them, and oh man, nothing tasted like those pecans from down there in Arkansas. Love me some candy pecans and almonds. Oh yeah, that's I should do a video on that, Mother Refugee, because they are extremely simple to make, and I'll tell you what, that's a good snack, probably better for you than all the stuff with all the dye and everything in it. Mike Tango Whiskey, DC is a test. AI job losses kicking unemployment, and that's true. I seen something. They were interviewing. It was a Silicon Valley. This is probably 10 years ago. It was a Silicon Valley executive, and he said, "We have people sitting around now trying to figure out what to do with people when technology takes all their jobs 25 years from now." Well, now that's 10 more years down the road from where we were, and if they were talking about it 20 years ago, I'm sure they're talking about it now. Back to medieval times, but with plastic around. That's true. It's probably easier to find a plastic bottle now, but sweet and spicy pecans. I should try that too. Uh, no point in preparing for an EMT. Everybody will have to audible. Yeah, the EMP. I got a metal garbage can here with a few goodies thrown into it that I got lined with cardboard and sealed with foil tape. Foil tape is another thing people should have. Look at me pulling stuff out here from my workbench. This stuff has a million different uses, a million different repair uses, and it's very sticky, and it's very, very, it's very hardy. it can take a lot of abuse. So keep a roll of this around. It can be helpful, and even for something as simple as repairing your dryer vent if you have to. Got to slide out, Corsair. Corsair, you take care. We're getting down here to the end. I'm going to wrap this up here soon. Anyway, but I strongly believe we are in for social and economic collapse. To really be honest with you, I'm surprised there hasn't been some collapse in the stock market here. Nothing's happened really major since 2020, and with everything that's been jumping around, I think that's entirely possible. We are prepared for a grid drought. I'm 68 years old, learned from my parents and grandparents. Like I said, we are too. We are too. As much as we are financially able, we are prepared for that. As like I said, we're not millionaires here. We just do what we can. Monkey Food Garden, Lily Critters, Deep Well Hand Pump. Oh yeah, tell you what, if you got a well with a hand pump, that's solid gold real estate right there. Do I have an Amazon storefront, Sunset? I'm thinking about putting one up just because there's different things that I mentioned to you guys, and it would make it easier for you guys to actually look at that. Because I got folks, I'll mention something in a video and I'll have folks ask me where I got that or this or that. So I'm probably going to do something like that eventually, just not necessarily for my own financial gain, but to help you guys out for ease and convenience. Thanks for doing a Saturday, MR. Yeah, no problem, Prepping Preacher. Like I said, maybe I'm going to alternate it between Saturdays and Sundays. That way everybody has a chance to get in here if they got to work or if they got something else going on like church or whatnot. So, but anyway, guys, I'm going to start wrapping it up here. It has been about an hour. I really appreciate each and every one of you guys taking an hour out of your day to come here. Hopefully I shared a little good information with you, talk about some channels and some different things that are always on my mind. But I appreciate each and every one of you guys stopping by here, watching my videos. I always hope that I am a help to the prepper community as a whole, both online and the folks that I know here locally. But anyway, appreciate each and every one of you guys as Modern Refugee. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.